Today, I'm joined with Vince Purves. He's the president of Consolidated Concepts, which is our GPO brand that focuses on providing services to multi-unit restaurant concepts and emerging chains. He's also a longtime Sysco veteran with a lot of experience in the distribution world. And that's why I've asked him to join me today to talk about some of the distribution and inventory challenges that restaurants are facing as they look to open up following the closures that were caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Thanks for joining me, Vince.
Thank you, Andy. Pleasure to be here.
Now, do you anticipate that a lot of operators will be facing out of stocks from their distributors? And if so, what's the most effective way for an operator to kind of stay on top of distributor substitutions and prepare for when that might be coming up so that they can then prepare their staff or their menus accordingly?
Yeah, and I think those are some good call outs again, Andy, because out of stocks already today, with everything kind of shut down, if you will, and limited operations for a lot of operators, the distributors are already struggling with service level. Out of stocks traditionally for most distributors, broadliners, et cetera, might be less than 2%. As an industry average, they're probably trending close to 20% right now in many aspects, depending on the product, depending on the customer channel that they're in, whether it's healthcare or food service or quick service. Those numbers can move up or down depending on the product line. But substitutions will be a reality. And I think that goes back to those expectations I talked about early on, is be prepared for substitutions. Have a conversation in advance with your distributor saying, listen, I know these are the products I normally buy. Here is a report of what I'm going to be thinking I'm going to be needing. Tell me what you think you're going to struggle with. Let's get ahead of it. Tell me what alternatives you're proposing so that way I can be prepared. I still think it goes back to communication, relationship, preparation, and expectation. Because at the end of the day, expect the worst, hope for the best, try to plan around it is going to be critical. Now, looking at contract customers, the fortunate thing about a contract customer is they're still going to get their contract margins regardless if it was the original item or substitution. Now, of course, the substitution might have a different cost of goods. That's a little bit of a challenge because if I was used to paying $30 for a case of product with a 10% margin, and now I'm going to pay 10% margin on a $35 or $40 item that's being substituted for that item, it's going to cost me money. They honored the contract margin percent, but now it costs me money. So again, from our perspective, we're recommending our operators really look at our GPO programs that we have to identify those items that they're currently not buying from us today, put those contracts in place because chances are those items will be the ones that are subbed over.
What do you expect to see as far as commodity items and their prices over the next, let's say, 4 to 6 months?
Yeah, so commodities, we're already starting to hear that there's going to be some inflation as it relates to products moving forward. Now, that's obviously something to be very well aware of and expectations. I think a lot of these distributors have products that were fresh that they moved to the freezer during this crisis. So a lot of these distributors are trying to unload that product and they're doing it at a reduced cost. So if you're normally buying a fresh product or fresh burger, fresh strip steak, chicken or whatever, and you're paying that price, that's the commodity price today, they've got product in the freezer that they want to get rid of. And a lot of them are reducing that product by 50% already today, and even more than that in some cases. So this is that opportunity to be nimble and be flexible is, I know what I want, I know the spec, but if there's a product out there that I can still utilize to offset some of these impact of costs, it makes total sense. Now, when you do that, you got to prepare operationally, making sure you're handling the product correctly from a receiving, thawing, and application. Because there's nothing worse than taking a product frozen and trying to force thaw it, and you're going to mishandle it. It's going to be a problem.
Have you noticed any changes specifically in the produce market? Any specific challenges that operators have been facing on procuring their produce?
So a lot of product doesn't actually going to equal a less cheaper price. So that availability of can it get to the supply chain network is really going to be the issue at hand. So from a stability of pricing, I wouldn't say that they're going to drop. but I don't see a dramatic increase at this point because normally when you see an influx of product, you see cheaper prices. I'm not really seeing a lot of cheaper prices in the marketplace right now.